let's get started. So there are two main things that we are going to talk about today. This is mainly about communication. जब भी आप कल को practical field में जाते हैं या कहीं भी आपका relation है, आपका जिंदगी में कुछ भी काम है, communication is important. Communication makes sure कि आप जो भी achieve करना चाहते हैं वो आप effectively achieve कर लें, contribute करें दूसरों की जिंदगी में भी, और दूसरे भी आपको जितना help कर सकते हैं effectively वो help करें. And in chemistry things are not different. Over here, to communicate effectively, we need to know what to call things, how to name things, how to tell others what we mean when we say something. And secondly, चीजों का नाम बड़ा ही जरूरी होता है because it tells us a lot about their behavior. So there are two things that we're going to talk about today. One is nomenclature, and the second one is balancing equations. Now, there are reasons behind that. Nomenclature is just a fancy way of saying naming scheme. How do we name stuff? चीजों का नाम कैसे रखा जाता है? Okay, so how do we name things? That's nomenclature. Now, the method for that, or does it have covalent bonding? Because if it is ionic, the method different hoga. And what we do is we name the cation and the anion. That's all we do. So we name the cation, we name the anion, and based on that, we can easily figure out कि वो चीज क्या है. And secondly, if we name the cation and the anion, that also tells us that this has ionic bonding in it. So I'll give you an example कि cation का नाम कैसे होता है. Cation का नाम usually it's just the name of the metal itself. अगर वो metal से बना हो. So if I have sodium, so sodium ion will be called Na+1, and that's it. ठीक है, और इसका नाम होगा sodium ion. That's it. If I have potassium or calcium ion, then it will simply be called calcium, and if it is potassium, it will simply be called potassium ion. That's it. The case will be different if I have transition metals. Transition metals make multiple kinds of ions. उनका कोई एक fixed ion नहीं होता है. Okay, so if you have sodium ion, it will simply be sodium with +1, and उसका नाम होगा sodium ion. If it is calcium ion, it's calcium with +2. The reason it is +2 is because it is in group 2, so it will lose 2 electrons, and that is fine. There are some metals which change that, जिनके नाम से हमें पता नहीं चलेगा कि उसमें positive कितना charge है. So for example, if I say iron, it doesn't tell me anything about the iron ion because I don't know how many electrons it has lost. So iron, because it's a transition metal, transition means change. So it goes from +2 also as +3. इन दोनों का नाम iron है. तो इसका मतलब है कि हमें बताना पड़ेगा कि this one is iron 2, and this is how we'll write it. It will have 2 in the Roman digits and the brackets to show that that is the charge on it. And iron, similarly, cobalt, for example, cobalt can be +2 and +4. Notice कि cobalt में मैंने O small letter में लिखा है. It is important that you do that because O is a symbol of oxygen as well. तो अगर CO capital होगा तो उसका मतलब होगा carbon and oxygen दोनों join होंगे. But this one is cobalt because O small letters. Now this one again same element, so I cannot say that both of them are cobalt ion. I cannot say that. Okay, so this one is cobalt 2 and this one is cobalt 4 ion. And knowing this ion charge tells me कि कौन सा ion है. Okay, so that's it. There are some that we need to know about in O levels or IGCSE, and I'll quickly tell you about those. So these are transition metals. Okay, and in transition metals, we have iron 2, we have iron 3. We need to remember this. We need to remember this. We also need to know about copper 2. And notice कि मैं उसको 2+ लिख रहा हूँ. By the way, अगर आप +2 भी लिख देते हैं, that is also acceptable. This one will be copper 2. So you also need to remember this one. Similarly, manganese, दो cases में आता है. There is manganese +7 and there is manganese +2. This you don't need to remember, but you need to be aware कि हाँ ये ऐसे होता है. because we will be dealing with elements later on. ऐसे compounds के साथ हम deal करेंगे, especially in redox वाला chapter, where Mn exists as +7, also as +2. So this will be manganese 7, and this will be manganese 2. Now all that is fine, and these are all transition metal lines. इनके अलावा भी transition metal lines जो भी होंगे, you will mention the charge. But here's the thing, there are some elements which we think are in transition metals, but they're actually not. One of those is zinc. Zinc will always form +2. Zinc कभी भी इसके अलावा कोई आयन बना ही नहीं सकता. So we will call it zinc only. We will not say it is zinc 2, even though in the periodic table it is in that place. It is still zinc. It will not be called zinc 2. Similarly, we have silver. So silver is +1 every time, and silver, for reasons that we don't need to go in O levels of IGCSE, we will just remember it as silver. We will call it silver. We will not say silver 1. Similarly, the third one that is in the same category is scandium. Scandium will simply be scandium 3. But the problem is it will always be 3. तो हमें ये 3 लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है. So scandium is always +3. We just say scandium. Silver is always +1. Silver, not transition metal ions. Anyways, so this is how this is going to be. We have silver, zinc, and scandium, and that's how this is gonna be. All right. So that's what we have. That is how we will call the cations. About the anions now. So anions को हम कैसे नाम देते हैं? So for anions, what we do is that we look at the charge, and there are 3 main categories that we need to be aware of in O levels. One is the ones that end with I, and that is single. So when I say nitrogen, so nitrogen is -3, so it will be nitride. When I say oxygen, it's just oxygen by itself. It is O-2, so it will be oxide. Now, how do I know it's -2? Because it's in group 6. इसको 8 करने के लिए 2 electrons चाहिए. And to gain those 2 electrons, that is what it will do. It will be -2. Similarly, if I have sulfide, then again, I will look in the periodic table that sulfur is in 6th group. It will gain 2 electrons, so it will be -2. So that is how we get IDE at the end of the name. There are other cases as well where we have 8. तो हमारे नाम के end पे 8 आएगा. And this is polyatomic ion, which we are also called, and they have the maximum oxygen. So one of those examples is sulfate. Now sulfate is S with 4 oxygen. Reason, sulfur can make maximum 6 bonds, और उनमें से उसने oxygen के साथ इस तरह 6 bonds बनाई होती हैं, and that is why ये maximum oxygen है. This is also called sulfur 6 ion. 6 bonds. But O levels और IGCSE में वो ये नहीं लिखता है. Exam में वो sulfate ही बोलेगा. Similarly, you can have carbonate. Carbon can make maximum 4 bonds. तो वो 3 oxygen के साथ वो बनाता है. And get carbonate. Similarly, you can get nitrate, which is NO3 with 1 negative, and you can get phosphate, which is PO4 3 negative. Now these are the ones that you need to remember. There are 7 molecular ions which you need to remember, and these are 4 of them, and they all have 8 at the end of their name. Now there will be cases where you don't have, so अगर इसमें so 4 में 4 oxygen है charge. Notice that it has to have a charge. It is only when it has a charge that, so it has SO4, this is SO3. Similarly, you can get nitrite which is simply 1 less than this. So try to figure out kya hoga wo. What will it be? NO2 with -1 charge. ये NO3 के साथ है, वो NO2 के साथ होगा. Okay, so that is how you can easily figure out what ions are there और उनके नाम क्या होंगे. बात करने. There is ammonium, which is NH4 with a +1 charge. There is hydroxide with OH minus. And these are the ions that you need to remember. So हमारे पास total ये, we have 7 ions. 1, 2, 3, and these 4. So these are the ions that you need remembering, that you need to be able to recall. But then there are some which you can identify. वो आपको नाम याद करना जरूरी नहीं है. Another one जिसका नाम याद करना जरूरी नहीं है, that is hydronium ion. So in hydronium ion, it's not something you need to remember, but it's something you should. But मैं tick कर देता हूँ. This, these 4, these are the ones. So now that we जैसे हमें उनके formulas का पता चल, take the cation. So whenever you're naming ionic compounds, you take the cation, you take the anion, and you just say the name. That's it. एक्स्ट्रा करने की जरूरत नहीं. So let's say हमारे पास है CuCl2. अब पहली बात ये है कि फॉर्मूला बना कैसे. So for that, let's look at कि फॉर्मूला कैसे बना होगा. The compound has an overall 0 charge. So chloride का charge हम periodic table से figure out कर सकते हैं. Chloride is in group 7, so it must be -1. And because it is -1, the total charge becomes -2. क्यों? क्योंकि there's 2 of this और हर एक का -1 charge है, तो overall -2 है. To cancel -2, इसको +2 होना पड़ेगा. So अब हमें पता चल गया कि हमारे पास है copper-2 और chloride ion. Notice कि मैंने 2 को cancel कर दिया. क्यों? Because मुझे सिर्फ ion का formula चाहिए. मुझे सिर्फ ion का नाम पता होना चाहिए. So now I will call this thing copper-2 chloride. That's all I've done. I've named the cation, I've named the anion, and that's it. ये सारा मेरा rough work है. I will just strike a line, and that is my answer. So now you know how to name things. All you have to do is identify इसमें कौन से ions हैं, and based on those ions, you can easily figure this out. So I'm going to do a few questions with you, and then the rest you can do at home. The worksheet was already shared with you. Now, this one is not given. The name is there. तो हम नाम कैसे रखेंगे? हमें पता है अमोनियम आयन है, तो अमोनियम. And we know कि phosphate ion है, PO4 -3. Now, how do you make the formula? You cross multiply the ratio of charge. Notice, I did not say cross multiply the charge. I said cross multiply the ratio of charge. Ratio इसलिए because this is empirical formula. All giant structures have empirical formula, जिसमें सिर्फ ratios बताई जाती हैं. So the ratio here is 1 to 3. So 3 comes here, 1 goes there. That's my rough work. I'll cancel it out. So you have NH4, 3. But then the problem is कि 43 भी हो सकता है. So इसलिए मुझे यहाँ पे bracket करनी पड़ेगी. PO4. Notice that I did not touch this 4 because वो उसके नाम का हिस्सा है. The charge is only thing that I take. Similarly, number 4, if I look at this is zinc, which is Zn+2, and nitride, which is N-3. So now all I need to do is cross multiply the ratio. So Zn3, N2. Notice I did not put brackets here because ये तो एक अकेला element है. So I'll just cancel this out because this is my rough work. In the exam, if you don't cancel out your rough work, then examiner से आप ये कह रहे हैं कि भाई खुद ही choose कर लो मेरा कौन सा आंसर है. Examiner will not choose for you. So इसलिए you should always cut your wrong answers or your rough work out. You don't have to do this. Just a single line is fine. Examiner को पता चल जाएगा. Let's try number 6. In number 6, I have cobalt 4. That means CO with plus 4. The charge in here is telling me that ये transition metal है, जिसका charge ऐसा होगा. And then we have sulfate, so sulfate is SO4 negative 2. I will always prefer कि हम rough work करें because that way we can't go wrong. So now this is 2, that is 4. The simplified version would be 1 to 2. So CO1, you don't need to put 1. SO4 2. And there you go. मेरा ये formula बन गया. I will cross this out. This might have work. So based on this, you can easily do the working and then you can find the answer. The solution for this worksheet will be sent to you right after the class. All right, so that is how you name ionic compounds. अब देखते हैं अगर हमें formula पता हो, how will you write the name? So let's go to the end of this worksheet. So here I have the formula given to me and I need to write the name. So again, the reverse process is first figure out what ions you have and then name them. So first one is really easy, sodium ion, chloride ion. So the name is going to be sodium chloride. Spelling mistakes के marks नहीं करते, provided कि वो chemically कोई नई चीज ना बन जाए. मतलब यहाँ पे कोई बच्चा अगर लिखते sodium chlorate, so ये spelling mistake नहीं है, ये conceptual mistake है. So इसके marks कटेंगे. Chloride is the right answer. Similarly, this one is silver ion and nitrate ion. So I will say silver, and I do not need to mention the charge because this is not transition. Nitrate. And there you go. We will skip this part. Now, in some cases, it may be difficult to figure out the charge. For example, number 8. In number 8, cadmium CD is a transition metal. हमें क्या पता उसका charge क्या है? So we will figure it out. So अगर आप देखें, Cl is in group 7, so it will be -1. So to make Cl -1, and there are 2 of this, तो overall हो गया charge -2. So उस -2 को cancel करने के लिए cadmium must be +2. In other words, ये जो 2 है ये यहाँ से आया है और ये 1 वहाँ से आया है. So now we clearly know that this is going to be cadmium 2, that is this ion, chloride, which is the other ion. Notice that I do not need to mention 2 in the name of chloride because the ion is simply Cl minus, ये बस 2 है वो. 2 is not part of the formula. It's just कि वो 2 उसके साथ join हो रहा है. Similarly, if you look at this one, this is ammonium ion, and that is iodide ion. So we'll say ammonium iodide. Similarly, if you look at number 10, OH is hydroxide. और उसका मुझे पता है कि charge हमेशा -1 होता है. So that means I have 3 hydroxides. So overall -3 होगा. To cancel it out, I need this to be +3. And I can now figure out that this is going to be iron 3 hydroxide. And that is how I will name these things. So all of the remaining ones, I guess you can easily figure out based on this. Now, what do we do in cases where we don't have ionic bonding, where we don't have ions? What if we have covalent bonds or covalent compounds? In covalent compounds, we give the exact number. So we give the exact number plus the name of the atom. अब exact number बताना आसान होता है for molecules. But even if it's not the molecules, then giant structure के लिए we give the ratio. So ratio for giant structure and the exact number for molecular structure. But बाकी सब कुछ वैसे का वैसा ही रहेगा. How do we exactly name them? तो हमारे पास counting होती है. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How will we name it? In inorganic chemistry, inorganic chemistry and organic chemistry, the counting is thoda sa different. In inorganic chemistry, the names are going to be, this is going to be mono, this is going to be di, this is going to be tri, this is going to be tetra, and this is going to be, penta. This is only when you have inorganic substances, आपके पास organic compound नहीं है. In the cases where we have organic substances, then the names will be slightly different. One will be called meth, two is eth, prop, but, and pent. So the counting for the first four, as you can see, is slightly different. Secondly, we try not to use mono all the time. We only use mono when there is a confusion. So only when multiple compounds are there. So let me give an example. Carbon and oxygen can directly join to give me carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide. They're completely different things. Carbon monoxide is poisonous. Carbon dioxide, poisonous nahi hai. Carbon monoxide is neutral. Carbon dioxide is acidic. Unke behavior bade different hote hain. So this one, we will say carbon oxide. तो वो तो हम दोनों को बोल सकते हैं, because both of them have carbon and oxygen in them. So हम क्या करेंगे? This will be called carbon monoxide, and this one will be called carbon dioxide, because here we need to differentiate so that there is no ambiguity, and that is how we name these things. So we simply take them. Now there can be giant substances as well. For example, silicon reacts with oxygen to make giant structure. लेकिन इसको भी हम silicon dioxide कहते हैं. Similarly, अगर आपके पास organic substances हैं, तो उनके नाम में counting differently होती है. जैसे CH4 को हम, इसमें एक carbon है, तो हम इसको methane बोलते हैं, because meth for one carbon, and that's how we name this. There are some जिनका हम सिस्टमैटिक नाम याद नहीं रखते, जैसे कि वाटर. वाटर को हम H2O उसका फॉर्मूला है, but we don't say it is dihydrogen monoxide. We don't say that. We just say water. Similarly, we have ammonia, which is NH3. And similarly, we have hydrogen peroxide. We don't look at the systematic name as much. We just say H2O2. So ये वो हैं, ये चारों जो आपको याद करने चाहिए, और I'm guessing कि आपको याद होंगे. So let's look at that. इनकी कुछ examples करते हैं. इनकी कुछ examples कर लेते हैं अभी. So if you look at these, the very first one, sulfur dioxide. So sulfur is S, di is 2, but this 2 is with oxygen, so SO2. Similarly, if you look at number 8, nitrogen N, monoxide O1, sorry, because there's only one oxygen. This one you need to remember, H2O2. This one, carbon monoxide, so carbon with one oxygen. We don't need to write one. Similarly, if you look at number 15, it is carbon tetrachloride. So tetra means 4 chlorides with it. Similarly, if you look at number 19, that this is diphosphorus, so P2 pentoxide O5. And we can clearly write the formula based on this. And not just that, हमें di or tri or pent से पता भी लग रहा है कि उसके अंदर covalent bonding है. Now let's look at some of the formulas. All of these are ionic, but if you look at number 20 is a unique case, because aluminum, even though it's a metal, it will bond with chlorine to make covalent bond. And मैंने आपको bonding में भी इसका नाम बताया था. This will not be called aluminum chloride क्योंकि ये ionic नहीं है. This does not have aluminum ion and chloride ion. It is actually aluminum tri because 3 chloride. So the tri word in there is clearly an indication that this has covalent bonding in it. Last thing for today, how do we name acids? Remember, acids have, if they're inorganic, तो उनके नाम के end पे IC आएगा. But if they're organic, तो उनके नाम के end पे OIC आएगा. That is one thing that we need to know. Second, acids exist in water. So अगर हमारे पास HCl है, this will be called hydrogen chloride. But if I have HCl aqueous, वो dilute भी हो सकता है, वो concentrated भी हो सकता है. But if it is aqueous, then we will call it hydrochloric acid. Similarly, अगर मेरे पास ये HI aqueous में आ जाता है, तो this will be think about it, iodic acid. We are naming the acid here and naming the hydrogen here because हमारे पास सिर्फ ये दो हैं, H है और Cl है और बात खत्म. But what if we have more than two? Then we usually don't mention hydrogen or oxygen. दोनों को हम नहीं mention करते. जैसे कि if we have HNO3, then we are not going to mention hydrogen or nitrate. We will simply say this is nitric acid. All we did is name the middle element. Similarly, अगर मेरे पास H2CO3 होगा, aqueous, so I will simply name this. This is carbon, and because it's acid, so ic, so carbonic acid. This is present in fizzy drinks. Similarly, आपके पास H2SO4 है, so this is going to be just the S, so sulfuric acid. This is used in batteries, and this is something that you need to know about. कि ये fizzy drinks में होता है या O levels IGCSE में चाहिए. And this one is in batteries, car batteries हो गई, उनमें होता है. Similarly, you have phosphoric acid as well. So यहाँ पे भी आप देखेंगे, we are only naming the middle element, so phosphoric acid. And that is how you name compounds as ionic and covalent substances when you know the name and when you know the ion. You can make formulas like this, and I would implore you to do the worksheet that I've shared with you. And yeah, thank you so much.